Good afternoon. This is your Eastern Area Fire Weather Briefing, starting Friday through much of next week. Currently, the Eastern Area remains at Preparedness Level 2, with the National Preparedness Level at 2 as well. Looking at temperatures and precipitation for May so far across the Eastern Area, temperatures overall have been slightly below normal across most of the Eastern Area. However, due to the extreme heat observed across the mid-Atlantic and eastern New England last week, temperatures there are averaging slightly above normal. It is important to note, however, that these anomalies in the Midwest have come down significantly as a result of the heat observed the last few days. As far as precipitation, it has been quite dry in the Great Lakes, with many areas receiving less than half of normal precipitation for the month. In the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, some dry areas persist, but overall, due to the precipitation received the past 7 days, anomalies are closer to normal and, in fact, are above normal from Ohio into western New York and most of northern New England. Currently, there are very few watches, warnings, and advisories out from the National Weather Service, with just some beach statements near Lake Michigan and a gale watch along the East Coast. Some flood warnings persist across portions of southern Indiana and Ohio as well. Looking at the forecast for Friday, temperatures will remain well above normal, nearing 90 degrees in much of northern Minnesota, with the above normal temperatures across much of the Midwest well into the 80s as well. A storm is expected to start moving through New England tomorrow, with bringing cooler temperatures along a cold front. Most of the precipitation is expected to be in northern New England, where a half inch to 1.5 inches is possible, centered on New Hampshire. Overall, relative humidity will remain quite low in the Great Lakes, generally from 25 to 35%, but some local areas as low as 20% are possible. Winds overall will remain relatively light, although they could push 10 to 15 miles an hour in portions of Minnesota, mainly from the south to southeast. In the northeast, some breezier northwest winds are possible behind the front. Significant fire potential is likely to be greatest in northern Minnesota and portions of Wisconsin tomorrow due to the hot temperatures, lower humidity, and areas of locally breezy winds. As we head into Saturday, the cold front that is moving through the northeast will push through the mid-Atlantic and much of the Great Lakes, but is expected to be dry that far west. Minimum relative humidity is likely to drop into the 20s behind the front, with some areas into the mid-30s as well. Breezy winds are most likely across western Minnesota, where 15 to 20 mile an hour winds and gusts of 30 to 35 miles an hour are possible. Across the rest of the Great Lakes, easterly winds of 10 to 15 miles an hour are likely, with northerly winds around 10 miles an hour in much of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Significant fire potential on Saturday is likely to be greatest in portions of northern Minnesota and Wisconsin, as well as the UP of Michigan. One thing to note with the relative humidity on Saturday is there's a very dry air moving in aloft. Some of these areas may mix down to the surface across portions of the UP, northern Wisconsin, and northern Minnesota, where RH could locally drop as low as 10 to 15%. Into Sunday, that front will wash out as it moves westward through Minnesota, with temperatures remaining above normal and generally in the 80s there, as well as into Wisconsin and the western UP. Temperatures will remain a bit cooler and closer to normal from the LP of Michigan into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. RH on Sunday will remain quite low in much of the northern Great Lakes, and from 20 to 30%, and that very dry air aloft may locally mix down as well, bringing RH as low as 15% for a few areas. Winds on Sunday aren't expected to be as strong in western Minnesota from the south to southeast, and generally around 15 miles an hour with gusts to 25 miles an hour, but still, those will need to be monitored. Elsewhere across the rest of the eastern area, winds are expected to be generally light and less than 10 miles an hour. Significant fire potential overall on Sunday expected to be highest in northern Minnesota, into much of Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan. Some potential may briefly increase in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic due to the drier conditions. However, these will be in areas of mixed hardwoods and conifers and in the pine barrens of New Jersey, where greenup is outside of the areas of significant greenup. Looking ahead to the medium range for next week, the areas of precipitation are likely to be very scattered in the Northeast and light with some isolated showers and thunderstorms on Monday into Tuesday along another cold front. As we head into midweek, there could be another cold front heading in from the northern plains that could bring some scattered showers and thunderstorms to Minnesota and maybe portions of northern Wisconsin and UP. However, how much precipitation occurs with this is uncertain, and many areas are likely to remain dry. With the warm and dry conditions likely to persist under the ridge of high pressure, with temperatures likely into the 80s and minimum RH likely to drop into the 20s as well, significant fire potential will remain highest in northern Minnesota and then spread into more of Wisconsin and Michigan as well. Looking ahead for the week 2 outlook, temperatures are likely to remain above normal. That cold front for mid to late next week will bring a brief cooling trend, but it is looking more likely that the ridge will rebuild across the upper Great Lakes, bringing a return to very warm conditions next weekend into early the following week. Precipitation is a little bit more uncertain. Although drier than normal conditions are likely in the Northeast for week 2, in the Midwest, it all depends on the precipitation along the front late next week. Some precipitation is likely, as mentioned earlier, but it will be scattered and not all areas will receive wetting rainfall. With the ridge likely to build, that will need to be monitored as RH will continue to remain below seasonal averages. For the past 7 days, most of the precipitation has been in the Mid-Atlantic, where 1.5 to 4 inches of rain was received across much of the area, bringing relief to the very dry conditions, especially in the coastal Mid-Atlantic. Much of the Northeast received 1 to 2 inches of rainfall as well. In the Great Lakes, precipitation was more scattered, with some areas receiving locally 1 inch of rain, but many areas receiving less than 1/2 an inch, with a few remaining dry. Over the next 7 days, the forecast precipitation is likely to be very little across the Great Lakes into the Ohio Valley. The precipitation in the Northeast is more focused on tomorrow, and as we head into the middle of next week, it does look wetter from Missouri into western Iowa, but how much of that makes it into Minnesota and Wisconsin is uncertain, with much of it likely to be scattered and only local amounts of wetting rain. In the lower right panel, this is the observed DUF moisture content today. These values are relatively moderate, but will be increasing over the next several days. Looking at drought, the drought monitor as of earlier this week has shown some improvement in the Mid-Atlantic as a result of the rainfall received last weekend. However, abnormally dry conditions have started to spread more across the upper Midwest due to the recently dry conditions this month. Looking at the GLFF initial spread index from sifters, today the values were highest across northern Minnesota. As we head into tomorrow with an increase in winds across the LP of Michigan, those values are expected to increase, remaining elevated across portions of northwest Minnesota. On Saturday into Sunday, with the stronger winds in western Minnesota, those values are expected to increase, along with a broader increase across much of the area on Saturday ahead of that cold front. On Sunday, with some cooler conditions, values are expected to drop a little bit temporarily in Wisconsin and Michigan. To summarize what we're seeing for the next week, very warm and dry conditions are expected in the Great Lakes into early next week, with the warmest conditions in the Minnesota. Temperatures are likely to be well into the 80s through at least Monday and Tuesday. Cooler temperatures closer to normal, if not slightly below normal, expected in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. It will also be dry for the next 7 days across most of the area, except for northern New England on Saturday and the western Big Rivers early next week. A cold front is expected to approach the Great Lakes mid next week with some scattered showers and thunderstorms, but also will need to be monitored for pre and post frontal winds due to the ongoing warm and dry conditions preceding the front. Overall, significant fire potential is expected to be moderate in northern Minnesota and expand into more of the Great Lakes as we head into early next week. The Duff moisture code is expected to dry out significantly and is starting to indicate the Duff becoming more available in a lot of the fuels. Keep in mind, will be more for the pine dominant or mixed fuels in the Great Lakes, while areas that have significant green up in the hardwoods are likely to see more moderated potential. Thank you for listening to the Eastern Area Weather Briefing.